Hi, my name is Daniel, also known as InTheFlesh. In this video, I'm going to go over the assets included in my free ITF dev kit for Genesis 8 Mail. You can download the kit from my Gumroad for $0, or you can set your own price if you'd like to show your support. There's a link in the video description to my store page. I also plan to create a version for Genesis 8 Female at a later date. The zip file that can be downloaded from your Gumroad library is DAS Install Manager compatible, or you can also manually install the files yourself if you wanted to. I recommend using DAS Install Manager just to make any future updates easier and cleaner to install. Once installed, you'll find the ITF Dev Kit folder under People, Genesis 8 Mail, ITF Dev Kit. So I'll go over the details of each feature included in the kit. We'll start with Load G8M Basic. This loads a Genesis 8 Mail at subdivision level 1 with a grey eye-ray shader I use for test renders. The eyelashes have been removed, and the maximum subdivision level under Parameters, subdivision level here, has been unlocked to a maximum of 4. And that just helps for when we're exporting our HD models out. Next is Apply G8M Texturing Pose. It's a custom pose to allow for easier texturing, so the fingers and toes have been spread apart and straightened. The legs are spread apart for increased access into the tight areas down here. And the arms have been raised up and straightened out as well. I tend to texture the eyes and the mouth separately, so for this pose, I've closed the mouth so it's still partially open. That way you can get access to the lips for texture painting with less distortion when compared to having the mouth fully open. And the eyes are also partially open just to allow for less distortion on the eyelids when you're painting textures. Next up is Explode Eyes and Teeth. This is a custom morph that moves the eye and teeth geometry outside the Genesis 8 Mail head. The sclera and pupil and iris have been separated out from the cornea and the eye moisture, just for easier texturing. And the teeth have also been aligned and spread out so that you can get in and around them when you're texturing as well. Then we have Zero Pose and Morph. And this simply does exactly what it says. It restores the default Genesis 8 Mail pose and removes the exploded eyes and teeth morph. Set sub D0, 1, and 4 are just simply one-click options and to set whatever sub D level you're looking for. That way you don't have to drill down into the settings all the time to change that. So I'll just set that back to the base. Go back to my smooth shaded. Next up is the single UV tile. So this is a custom UV set that moves all the UV shells into a single non-overlapping layout. So if you just double click that to apply, and this is an example of what the layout looks like. So this is optimized for texture painting and baking in applications that don't support multiple UDIM tiles like what the Genesis 8 base Mail default UV has. Again, I usually texture the eyes and mouth separately, so the UVs for those parts have been scaled down and placed into blank areas on the torso and leg UVs. If you use this UV set, you can convert the created textures to be compatible with the default base Mail UV set, just simply by cropping them into 4 equal square textures. I'll jump into Photoshop and just show you a quick example of that. So in Photoshop, I have a 8K texture, as you can see here. That's all my diffuse textures that were painted in Mudbox for a character. I can simply just create File, New, and we'll create a 4K square texture. And I'm just going to hit Control A to select everything. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. And as you can see, if you just move the image around, if you snap it up into each corner, you can simply save that image out as your texture map. So you would save this one as your face texture, move it over, make sure it snaps into the corners, save that out as your torso texture, and so on. If you have leftover textures from the eyes or from the mouth down in the legs, you can just simply paint over them with whatever background color is set for your texture, just for cleanliness. The skin UDIM UV is similar to the single UV tile in that the eye and mouth UVs have been scaled down and placed into a blank area of the torso UVs, but instead of the UVs being on a single tile, the face, torso, legs, and arm UVs are still in their original UDIM locations. This is the layout that I prefer to use when I'm working in Mudbox, because Mudbox fully supports UDIM, texture painting, and baking, and nothing needs to be done to the textures using this UV set to be compatible with the default base male UVs. But you can go in and paint out the eye and mouth textures as shown previously, if you'd like. The Even UV tile is a custom UV set that moves all the UV shells into a single non-overlapping UV tile, but it also scales the parts to ensure even pixel density across the surface. This is really useful when projecting full body photographs or extracting texture maps to reduce seam differences that appear because of the different scales of the UV sets. For example, the difference in pixel size between the face and torso textures can leave you with seams when using other UV tiles. The downside to this UV set is if you want to make the textures compatible with the base male UV set, you will need to reproject the textures, which can result in a loss of fidelity. So if you're doing that, I would recommend making 16K maps if your hardware can handle it. The last UV set is the Genesis 8 base male UVs, just to restore the UVs back to their default. Up next we have Export Base OBJ. This changes the selected figure to base resolution 0 and sub D0, and then prompts for a location to save OBJ file out. The settings are pre-configured to work for exporting to Mudbox and Maya. It may work in other applications, but these are the default settings that I use for all my exports. Then we have Export Sub D OBJ. If I just change the subdivision level here, this simply exports the currently selected figure at whatever resolution level and subdivision level are currently active, and again, just prompts for you for a location of where to save. Uses the same settings as the previous export. And finally we have a head, eye, ear, mouth and teeth deformer. These just load preset weight map deformers. They're mostly used for when importing morphs to define which parts get morphed or not. The head deformer has a soft fall off and can be used to split head and body morphs into separate parts. The eyes deformer can be used to ensure the eyes aren't affected by imported morphs. It has no fall off, so it doesn't affect the eye socket itself, it only affects the eyeball geometry. The ear deformer also has a soft fall off, and the mouth and teeth deformer have a soft fall off as well, just to help blend in the inside of the lips with the default mouth. By default, the imported morphs using these deformers, I'll just apply the head deformer. Imported morphs will be applied to the selected area visible. If we go to our node weight map brush and click on our deformer. So by default, the morphs will be applied to the currently red areas. To invert that so that we can import just the head, for example. In Morph Loader Pro, make sure you have Genesis 8 male selected, go Morph Loader Pro. choose more files, and I've just exported out Michael 8 base, so I turned his scaling off. Just open that up. Under the settings, we can go to attenuate by, right click on that, weight maps, head deformer, influence weights. So we'll set this as strength 1, and then choose more files, Michael 8 base, so that this is at strength -1. Under attenuate by, weight maps, head deformer, influence weights, and we set our strength to -1. Accept. Okay, we'll go into under morphs, morph loader. We load in Michael 1 base, you can see that morphs the head. And when it's -1, that morphs the body. So that's how you use the deformers. Same process for the ears, eyes, and mouth. So that's all for now. I hope you find this video and the ITF dev kit for Genesis 8 Mail to be helpful in creating custom content for Daz Studio. Follow me over on my Gumroad for updates for future products. Cheers.